Hello and welcome back to Bristol News, the part of the show where I go head-to-head with each of the 13 candidates, hoping for your vote in the Bristol Mayoral elections. That's in less than a fortnight's time. Now, your views and comments very welcome as ever. Get in touch in the usual way, the details on your screen now. Talking of head-to-heads, the bookies predicting that's just what it'll be between tonight's guest and the current incumbent come the final count. But what do they know, eh? It was close in the first mayoral election in 2012, but boxing fan Marvin Rees is very much looking forward to the rematch. The Labour candidate is older, but is he wiser as to what will swing the voters his way? Let's find out. Marvin, welcome to the programme.
How are you doing, Steve?
Just over 6,000 votes, wasn't it, last time between the pair of you? But it hit you hard, didn't it, coming second?
Well, it's a loss. It should hit anyone hard when you put your heart and soul into something and it comes up short. But as I said in my concession speech at the time, that it actually provided me with an incredible platform to talk to people in the city about overcoming, about resilience. I mean, I work with a number of charities in Bristol that work with young people who aren't seen as successful. And I gave a talk literally about 3 weeks after the loss. And I opened up with, I stood in front of 400,000 people as a failure, yeah. Right? And it was a fantastic road in, because they didn't see me like that, but it was a fantastic road in to be able to talk to them about how they put forward their life trajectories and how they might overcome challenges that come their way.
But it's been a benchmark through your whole life, hasn't it? Resilience, and in some ways beating the odds. You know, Eastern boy, mixed race, single mum, not a lot of money to splash around, discrimination around the place. I mean, were you an angry young man? Did you feel as if you were battling the system right from the word go?
I wouldn't say I was angry. I mean, clearly, if you look at the world and you think it's unfair, if you didn't have some anger about you, there'd be a problem with your emotional antennae. And no, but I wouldn't describe. Don't put me across as the angry black man here, Steve. No, I grew up. Yeah. I grew up with a sense of frustration at the world. That's why I went to work for development agencies and I went to work for charities and campaign organisations. I grew up with a sense of disappointment, sorrow. I used to describe it as a young person as feeling sorry for people. I suppose as a grown-up you talk about compassion. Yeah. And growing up as a young person as well, which really influences my approach to the world, was with my mum. As you said, we didn't have much. We lived on the estate and lived in a city. We lived in a refuge for a little while. I had an ongoing sense of vulnerability as a young child, both vulnerability for myself and for my mother, and I suppose that's grown into me wanting to be a protector. And I'm not necessarily ferociously successful, but I like to protect my family politically, economically, and that translates into my politics too, a politics that takes care of people.
But that is so important because that's what makes the man, isn't it? And that's what makes it molds the policies that you're putting forward at the minute.
It is. My politics comes out. My politics comes out of me, which is, when I sit and the lights are out and I reflect, it is very much that my passion for politics and my passion for engagement in public life. And when I say my passion for politics, it's not just about party politics, because my first forays into politics were really inspired by reading about people like Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy and so forth. But it definitely comes out of my experiences of Bristol growing up and wanting this to be a place in which, in the same way as I've tried to have a journey where I've tried to be the fullness of my aspirations, but everyone could do it.
Inequality yourself, did you feel a second-class citizen? You talk about humiliation at school and in various interviews that I've read about you. You say yes, you did feel as if you weren't as good or you weren't treated as well as other people, as white kids maybe.
Well, it's not, but you see, the way that race and class work is interesting, because I actually have a natural. I grew up, you can say, as a mixed race kid, so with a white family, and my white family were my primary carers, and my mum and my grandparents. So I'm not claiming to be any Obama, please don't. But that piece that Obama wrote about his relationship with his white grandparents, I really resonated with that. Being a young black kid in a city that had issues of inequality, had issues of race, but I was going home to my white mother every day. So I did feel that second class, not just because of what I was experiencing, but what I saw my white mother experiencing as well, as a poor woman who couldn't find anywhere to live because she had a brown baby on the way except for City Road, and then living on a housing estate on the edge of town. So I did feel that the messages coming at me was that I wasn't as important as other people in Bristol.
And I wonder if that has kept going all the way through. There's one quote I want to throw at you. I heard you mention it in an interview, and you've said it a few times in different ways, and that is when you're talking about maybe George Ferguson. You say, George gives the impression he's the man and I'm the kid he picked up on the street. You know, it's almost in boxing parlance as if in this race George Ferguson somehow got inside your head, and maybe those insecurities are beginning to play out rather than you be the big man. Is that fair, or am I being am I analysing it too much?
It was a quote that when we had our head-to-head on Radio Bristol, myself and George, and I thought that part of the attitude was quite dismissive of me and my offer, and I felt too that it was a bit dismissive of the journey and the progress I've made in my life to become a mayoral candidate, and I shared that in the moment, and I thought that was inaccurate how I was feeling. But that, because someone feels like that, doesn't mean that that's where you sit. I think I'm everyone's equal. And I shared a story. It's not just about me. When I shared a story quite often that when I got to university, it was an incredible kind of lights on moment for me, that I looked around, there were loads of students there, and I was thinking, these people are not smarter than the people I grew up with that didn't go to university, that didn't make anything of it.
You proved that with a couple of master's degrees, didn't you? And,
masters, bit of time in the US, bit of time at Yale and so forth. But yeah, I constantly meet people who are there because maybe more of their socioeconomic background, not because they're inherently more talented.
Let me ask you then how you bring that kind of intellect, and there is clearly intellect coming into the equation.
Thank you very much.
No, seriously, are you a thinker rather than a doer though? Because you talk a lot in this campaign about we'll consult, we'll review, we'll talk about things. Whereas George Ferguson, whatever you think about him, he throws it up and he gets on with it and he does something. Is that a vital difference in the mentality between the two of you?
No, you can't box us in like that. I founded a program, I don't even know if I invited you to come and speak on it, but we're a city leadership program, right? Where we identified 12 to 15 high ability, high aspiration young people. We put them on a 2-week program. It's based on my story, based on many of my friends' stories. We ran that for 4 years. We got a young woman into Oxford this year. That's doing. Working with our voluntary sector groups in Bristol, that's doing. Running the Bristol Partnership, that's doing.
So what are you going to do?
You have to have, but rushing ahead and doing stuff without thinking about it, taking a knee-jerk reaction, bouncing off public opinion is no way to lead. You've got to have some ideas, and actually I would actually say you've got to have some ideology, because that feeds into your sense of what your values are.
Let me just ask you then, let's talk about a couple of the policies here. We'll come on to housing if we can, but the transport, getting Bristol moving, and this is your sheet that we've got here. Most of the first half of that is saying what's not happening at the minute and what George isn't doing, and how you would perhaps reverse things, or at least have a look at things like RPZs and 20-mile-an-hour zones. Why didn't you fill that with the things you're actually going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's totally fair, because I think no, in terms of the portrayal of what's going on, because I think one of the key features of the feedback we get from Bristol is not that people just want a list of bullet points about what you're going to do. That's important, but they're also talking about how leadership makes them feel. What is the style? You know, do they feel that they've been included? There's a well-known African proverb, okay? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think there are lots of people who feel things have been done alone and haven't been taken along with this ride. They haven't been felt respected at the end of the process. So that's a very important piece about the style of leadership that's on offer.
There's also an old saying, you can't do much by committee, isn't there? And too many people sitting around talking about it.
I'll go with the African proverb.
You stick with that one, will you? Yeah, well, and the problem with some of these, as you say, they end up like wish lists, don't they? You got candidates, 11, 12, 13, all saying more or less, I'm going to fix the housing, I'm going to fix the transport in this city, and it's not that easy to do. What is going to set you aside? What's going to be different about what you're going to bring to the table than what's gone on before? There's been quite a lot achieved, haven't there, over the last 4 years?
So one of the key features, and I'm not saying other candidates haven't thought about this, I'm just talking about my approach, is that I think that what was really on offer with the mayoral system of governance was really about changing the way we do city leadership. My argument was that what people receive from Bristol is not simply the result of what comes out of Bristol City Council, right? Yeah. That's the overemphasis on local government. And my argument was, you may remember, that if you simply take the mayor, stick them on a city council, and then expect everything to work, that's going to be a false promise, right? What people receive from Bristol is the result of the interaction of local government, health service, voluntary sector, criminal justice, unions, the whole range, business and so forth. So actually the art of being a mayor is about how do you work across all those boundaries and rally that impact and
resource. You have to deal
resource.
with the politics as well, don't you?
Absolutely,
and I do
absolutely.
remember back from the last time that the only party who didn't take part
But that's,
in the
I just want to say, Steve, I just emphasise.
at the time was Labour, wasn't it? Well,
Okay, but can I just say just on that approach, it is actually very important because it also talks to the kind of leadership and talking to mayors around the world, what you've really got to think about is that the style, it is not a command and control role, it's convene and ask. The mayor does not have command and control over the chief of police for Bristol.
All right.
How can you work with the police of Bristol to identify shared priorities and deliver on those?
Let me just ask you a couple of quick big questions as well.
Sure.
Devolution, because transport comes under all of that, doesn't it? And a lot of squabbles and infrastructure problems that we've had in the past have been through bickering among the four authorities. They seem to be getting together now and talking about this Metro Mayor, which is going to bring the £1 billion package, isn't it? Are you for the Metro Mayor? Yes,
we have to be because because it's it's a condition of drawing down the investment and the devolvement of our powers that we need. But I'm concerned about the imposition of a political structure. And structures are one thing, but working relationships are another. And we've had structures in the past, we've had partnership structures in Bristol given to us before, but they haven't necessarily worked because they haven't got their relationships right. So I think that I would suggest that my challenge would be, one is we have to talk about how that role is going to be genuinely accountable, and it can't just be a concentration of power as we've had under the current mayoral system of governance. All executive powers, is now invested in the mayor, it's not been shared with the cabinet. And secondly, we have to work about how we are going to get the working relationships right.
We've got 10 seconds left. Do you feel more prepared this time round? I won't ask you whether you're going to win or not, but do you think that you're a better man for the job than perhaps 4 years ago?
Life and hardship prepares us for what comes next, absolutely. Muhammad Ali was ready for George Foreman because he lost there all the times before. You know, I'm bigger, badder, wiser.
Good to talk to you.
Thanks very much, Steve.
There we are. Thanks very much indeed, Marvin Rees. So, has Marvin convinced you, or will you sway towards one of the other 12 candidates? Well, here they are. I'm, of course, probing the policies and the personalities of each of them every weekday evening at this time up until the election. On Monday, we welcome the Green Party's Tony Dyer. So until then, from your City TV channel, have a great weekend. See you Monday. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.